Muy buenos días, reciban la más cordial bienvenida a este nuevo espacio del Instituto de Prospectiva e Innovación en Salud INOS, un tanque de pensamiento, una iniciativa conjunta entre AFIDRO y la Universidad del Bosque, una iniciativa que se está pensando y se está imaginando el futuro del ecosistema de la salud y la innovación en Colombia. Queremos compartirles que con este evento inauguramos una serie de conversaciones que denominamos Diálogos sobre propiedad intelectual, visiones y perspectivas, un espacio en el que compartiremos con expertos y referentes en esta materia. El día de hoy contaremos con la participación de la doctora Van An Lee. La doctora Van An actualmente es profesora en Derecho de Propiedad Intelectual en la Universidad de Warwick, cuenta con experiencia como docente en diversas universidades en el Reino Unido, es miembro de la Society of Legal Scholars, la New IP Lawyers Network y la IP and Innovation Researchers of Asia Network. Se destaca por su estudio de tesis sobre licencias obligatorias de productos farmacéuticos patentados, una forma legítima o ilegítima de mejorar el acceso a los medicamentos en los países en desarrollo. La doctora Banan es referente en materia de propiedad intelectual, patentes y acceso a medicamentos en países en desarrollo y se ha destacado por distintas investigaciones realizadas a lo largo de su carrera académica. En este diálogo nos acompaña nuestro director del tanque de pensamiento, el doctor Carlos Felipe Escobar, a quien en este momento le quiero ceder la palabra.
Okay, well, it is, as we told, a pleasure have you here, Dr. Bana. Really, your work is impressive. We have talked about a bit about your background, and but let's try to start this conversation with you sharing with our audience, well, a little bit more from your personal background and how you finish at this stage of your academic and research career focusing in this field of IP in healthcare, and what is moving the future lines of research of yourself and the people you are involved right now.
Thank you so much for the question and for having me today. I am currently teaching IP law at Warwick University. And what inspired me to move to my current research field today has something to do with my personal background. So I come from a family where I have been exposed to discussion in the healthcare sector since I was little due to my parents' career. And then when I study law, I have developed a strong interest in IP. And my dad was the one who suggested that I should look into the interface between intellectual property rights and the healthcare sector. And that's where my research has its roots. So my PhD research is is focusing on the compulsory licensing, and in the futures, I am thinking of doing another research on the medical use, the second medical use of patented medicines in certain countries.
Well, it's wonderful to hear about that. I think that we here in my country, I am a medical doctor, and I have led a big university in our country, Albosky University, very focused in health care sciences. And one of the things that we have been discussing here locally is that we should really introduce much more the IP system concepts and let's say skills and an understanding from all our healthcare professions.
Yes.
I guess it's missing, and I don't know if you have the same situation there in the UK, but at least here, I think that it's a missing part of our curriculum. So we're trying to move on and to try to generate some of motivation from INUS in order to really get a bit stronger in our healthcare programs related to these issues. Okay, so let's start our conversation talking a little bit what has happened with the COVID-19 and how COVID and the reaction to the pandemic really challenged the scenario, beliefs, standards, and performance of what we previously known as vaccine research and manufacturing. We had some numbers, statistics, etc., and it seems that everything is have changed related to what has happened. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, I think it's very impressive that we consider in less than a year since the WHO declaration of COVID-19 as a global pandemic, we already have like vaccines against COVID-19. And in a normal situation, making vaccines for other diseases can take between from 10 to 15 years. But in a very special circumstance, in a very phenomenon, we already have the vaccine. And so far, there have been 13 vaccines against COVID-19, which have been approved in at least in one jurisdiction. And we also see the vaccine programs in many countries. And I think it's a very remarkable achievement.
I think it's an absolutely remarkable achievement. Achievements. Who do you think? Probably many different actors, but do you think we may really give thanks as normal citizens of any country related? We have these huge responses everywhere. We hope that would be faster anywhere, but in any case, it has been the fastest and most efficient response of research
Yes.
and manufacturing in the whole history of health.
Yes.
Who should we give thanks for this?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of actors that we should give thanks to: scientists and the healthcare, the politicians, even the people, the medical staff, and the volunteers in the clinical trials. And I know that there are many clinical trials taking place I think in Latin America. So I think we need to say thanks to like so many people. Yeah, and I don't think that we can single out who, but I think this is a joint global effort, and everyone
Absolutely.
has played a big role to make it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely, Dr. Ben. And I think that one of the most important things is to recognize the success humanity have shown regarding this reaction. Still, we could have made it better, but this what happens is impressive, and I think that we should be grateful for everyone that who has contributed to what is happening right now. So, however, Dr. Brennan, inequalities between countries have emerged and have, let's say, of course, been in place regarding the rhythms of vaccination and the total numbers that we see right now. And of course, these inequalities have risen these concerns regarding intellectual property rights and patents, and they have been considered definitely a great barrier in the COVID-19 supply. I would like you to address a little bit of this issue. What are the real causes of these global inequalities in terms of vaccination numbers, rhythm of vaccination, and what is the role of research, manufacturing, and distribution in this very complex process?
Yes, I do agree with you that it's undeniable that the inequitable access to vaccines. So, for example, the countries where I am working now, the UK, has one of the most widespread vaccine program. However, my home country, Vietnam, has the lowest rate of vaccines. So far, I think we only have 0.8% of the whole population have been given 2 doses. So it's a very small number compared with I think more than like 70% of the UK adult population who have been given both doses of the vaccines. And I think the situation in Vietnam also represents many countries, not only in Southeast Asia, but I'm sure in many countries in Africa. However, in my view, I don't think the issues with the vaccines lie with intellectual property right, because we have, for example, company like Moderna, they pledge that they will not enforce their patent in protection if anyone want to make the Moderna vaccines. But so far, we haven't seen any company take upon the offers. Similarly, we have so many countries, including developing and developed countries, either amended their laws to incorporate something called compulsory licensing to facilitate the manufacture of the vaccine once the COVID-19 vaccines were found. We have Chile, Ecuador. We also have, Indonesia, Australia, Germany, France, Canada, Israel, but none compulsory licensing has been issued so far, and I am not aware of any voluntary license request either. So I think there is something like deeper than that that we need to investigate further. Um, Based on my research, I found out that the vaccine manufacturing is very complex and very sophisticated. Um, for example, making Pfizer vaccines involve 280 components from 38 suppliers from 19 countries. And we also lack the human resources, we lack the expertise and the manufacturing capacities. There are very few manufacturing capacities at manufacturing facilities in the world which can manufacture the COVID-19 vaccines. And we also and also the export restriction of the country like the US, and for example the restriction of the EU, and we also have the restriction of India on stopping the Serum Institute of India from exporting vaccine to other countries. I think those restrictions do not help to accelerate the vaccine. In my view, I think those countries, they should lift the export, allow the raw material to freely circulate between manufacturers. And we also need to have the dialogue with the vaccine manufacturers to decide or to come to know what are the roadblocks, what is the need at the moment to accelerate the production. That is how I view what are the issues with the vaccine manufacturing at the moment.
Great. So let me try to get, but it seems like regarding the numbers that you have presented, the number of new vaccines that have been at this stage approved and are under use. I think it's 30 vaccines at this
13,
moment, and
yes.
yeah, 13. And you said probably we are in the pipeline of new vaccine development. It could be around
60 something. Yeah.
60 something new vaccine. So it does not seem to be an issue of how good and how fast and how efficient we are in the scientific research side. Yeah, I think
Yes.
it seems like researchers, universities, pharma labs, and
Yeah.
everybody involved in the research field is doing the work very well and very, very, very fast. So issues relating to IPR at this stage that seem to, let's say, have some good way regarding the numbers and the results we are watching. So these inequalities, it seems to address, as I understand from your insights, a little bit in this nationalism issues related import export of goods related to both manufacturing and then of course in the import of export of vaccines produced. What is the origin of how do you see the origin of this nationalism? Is it something that comes from us as civil societies, governments, or is it to blame the industry of these nationalism issues?
Yeah, I think the scale, the severity of the pandemic is, it's happened that we have never seen anything like that before. And the number of deaths in those countries, for example, is the number of deaths in the US, in the EU at the very beginning of the pandemic had made the government of those countries, the region, take a very radical step, and they just want to secure the vaccines for their own countries. And that's what happened in India. We saw the crisis in India in May, and that's when the export restriction. So I think that is something that we need to learn from that. Instead of stopping the vaccine from going out of the country, we should encourage the collaboration, and we should
Absolutely.
find a way, to increase the partnership rather than just holding the vaccine for like each individual country.
But and definitely, I think that you have presenting something, some issue of what I would say a sort of nationalism inconsistency. Well, at least related to the Weaver, for example, because
Yeah.
India was one of the proponents of the Weaver in late in October, and then say, well, we need to do this because of the good of the public, and then they close exports of vaccines
Yes.
produced there in India to other low income and developing countries. So they should definitely has a lot more involved than just the intellectual property rights systems everywhere, who is the right now, I would say, the main focus of questioning and let's say, of course, of trying to move. Now let me ask you something related to manufacturing, because I think that and I agree absolutely with you. You said big issue is manufacturing. How ready and how prepared are we in most of the regions and countries of the world to manufacture and to increase manufacturing? So, what would be, let's say, first, your insights on how the manufacturing capacities exploded? Because I think
Mhm.
you have some very good numbers regarding how we have handled to grow in terms of the capacity of vaccine production. However, well, what are the main bottlenecks to have new hubs of vaccine production anywhere, and what would be the most important things for any regions to consider to move this way?
Yeah, so I think in order to answer this question, I think we need to understand the vaccine industry a little bit, because before the pandemic, compared with the other like normal medicines, I think the vaccine industry is quite like smaller than the normal pharmaceutical industry. We only have like a number of manufacturers. So and vaccines, different from others medicine, they used to prevent the diseases. And with the change in the global epidemic, it's quite difficult for the scientists, like I would say, like pre-pandemic, to predict when the new diseases will happen, in order for them to prepare the production. So that's we need to understand the difficulties of the vaccine industry. And another thing we might also take into account, that's vaccines are living things. They are biological products. They are sensitive to heat, and they need to be treated with great care. And even the manufacturing facilities to manufacture the vaccines, we need to follow the good manufacturing practice and good distribution practice. And each batch of the vaccines will need to go through hundreds of quality control checks, and does make the building manufacturing vaccines a local one is quite difficult, and it will take between 3 to 5 years for a country to build a manufacturing facility from scratch. So for example, I think recently, I think Pfizer, they wanted to be a manufacturing facility in Singapore, and that's a quite developed countries in Southeast Asia. But the manufacturing facility will not put into work until 2022 or 2023. So even for a country like Singapore, it will take them several years to build the manufacturing capacity for vaccine. So in this case, I think government might need to invest more for research and development. And I think in my view, this pandemic is a wake-up call for the government. Shall we should invest more in research and development, in engineering, in science, just to because we need to prepare for the next pandemic, which can take place anytime. And now with the variants of the vaccines, I think that is something the government needs to do more and to encourage, give more incentives to researchers and to scientists.
Absolutely. So let me try to brief what you have shared. But it seems like you are suggesting us that at least for the end of these pandemics, it is not so feasible that we can add some value building from scratch some new manufacturing facilities anywhere in the world. When they get ready to start operating, probably pandemic is over, and then it will mean that we shall be with this mind frame of getting prepared for sure for the next big challenge that humanity will face. But then you address this very important issue, which is, well, if I'm looking right now for the long term, and I'm trying to really understand what we need to do, mostly in the regions like ours, lower income and developing countries. You arrive to this field of capacity building, most really relating to researchers in the different fields and knowledge transfer. Would you and now I would like you, because these two things seems so very important in the long term capacity and pharmaceutical security for any country. What will be the impact of let's say eroding IPR system,
Mm-hmm.
while having in mind that in the long term you need to strengthen capacity building in your region and knowledge transfer, which will require some sort of cooperation with let's say industry from all around the world.
Yeah, so I think the IP system in general plays an important role in I think at least in guaranteeing the return on the research and development in some countries. So if we look at the countries who developed the COVID vaccine now, okay, we have the US, we have Germany, we have UK. All of those countries have a long standing intellectual property system. So I think that is something that we, for example, if you're Colombia want to look into and learn from the experience of those countries to see to what extent a strong IP system will help to encourage research and development. And at the same time, the governments might want to design the policy in a way to strike a balance between the access to the medicine, but also at the same time the incentive to the innovation in the future. It's not an easy task, but it's not something impossible. I think we already have a lot of examples in the world that we can learn from that.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely pointing in the direction of how can we, let's say the proper question would be something like how can we accelerate knowledge transfer and capacity building, mainly human talent in countries like ours, yours, Vietnam, and ours, Colombia. Am I in your direction?
Yeah, so I think like for example at the moment Vietnam also try to develop its own COVID vaccine, and it's also signed some technology transfer agreement with some countries, but I do not have enough data at the moment to consider to what extent it will be successful. But but uh, I think after the pandemic, the country's government might will be more aware of that. They need to have their own manufacturing capacity to at least secure the production, vaccine production or medicine production in case like that. So they don't have to rely on international supplies or relied on the donor from other countries. So I think it's not only technology transfer but also from the perspective of national security.
Absolutely. Great. Great. Well, it seems it's necessary to talk a little bit about uh, who has been funding and who is funding at this stage the vaccine development. Because there's this general understanding, I would say, in regions like Latin America, that most of these comes from government funding. Can you share with us some numbers, and mostly regarding these numbers, how let's say changes in intellectual property rights and systems would let's say impact the investment that is required for sure for next development. I think that you have addressed something very important, and that is first, for sure we are going to have a new pandemic sometime in our future, but then we could also have in the very next future a COVID-19 let's say completely resistant variant that could definitely develop a new sort of vaccine. So in this regard, what can we do to let's say improve the intention of investment in these developments, which are very expensive, and let's say get for guarantee that we are going to have the speed of results that we have already had.
Yeah, so at the moment, based on what I have, based on my research, I found out that so far we have around 19 billion pounds, 19 million pounds, which had been invested in a vaccine development, according to a source of BBC. And out of the 19 billion, 6.5 billion came from the government funding. And I think in Moderna, the majority of the funding come from the government. And in general, nearly 1.5 of the 19 billion are from not-for-profit organizations, whereas the industry contribute the biggest share. That's 12 billion, around 60% of the total spending. So as we can see from the numbers, it's quite clear that even with the funding from the government, the private industry still bear the biggest public spending on vaccine development. Can you repeat your next questions again? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, well, the issue, what would be the impact of let's say changing or eroding the IPR and patent protection system regarding the let's say the impact in investment in the short and long term?
Yeah, so I think in my view, there are a couple of implications that might affect us in if we erode the intellectual property system. And the biggest thing I can think at the moment from a perspective of developing country, that's if we might have more counterfeit products. And for me, it's the biggest concerns, especially in a country like Vietnam, where we don't have a strong regulatory, authority review, and then the border controls might not be effective. And that's why if we allow the mass production of vaccine without a proper control from the patent holders, I think for my people, I think it's a little bit worrying. So for example, I think a few months ago, Pfizer had a training with the Vietnamese government, and just to the purpose of the training, the conference is to inform the government how to distinguish the genuine and the fake vaccines. So it's make it quite very clear. So it's really a concern in our country at the moment. And I can share with you is for like for I think if we erode the IP protection, I don't think it can accelerate the vaccine. Eroding the IP system doesn't help us to have more expertise at the moment. It doesn't help the government to build the manufacturing capacity. And even we take away the intellectual property right, how about the trade secrets, how about the know-how? And they are these are the technology transfer that lies in vaccine manufacture, and those in these that information is not shared in the patent registration. And I don't think waiving the IP protection will encourage the right owners to share with other generic other the companies their know-how. And I think if we allow and instead of framing our discussion into the waiving the IP waiver proposal, shall we redirect our resources into solving the roadblock to the vaccine programs, and considering what can we do to make it happen quicker and get people to have more vaccine? And why we are talking about the waiving IB system, the virus is mutating outside, and it does not wait until we finish negotiating the test, which thing should be exclude or include in the waiving proposal. And if we remove the IP system, we will send a bad signal to the investor. I think that is something that we need to take into account. And we need to think very carefully. Is it are we sure that by waiving IP, we will accelerate the vaccine production? I do not think so. I don't know, what do you think? But I don't think by removing IP we will have like vaccine quicker and cheaper.
Absolutely. I need to say that I completely agree with you, and I think that I think that you're very in line of I am aware you have heard about this Gates Foundation, and they are, let's say trying to address this issue. It is much more important right now to address these issues of knowledge transfer rather than let's say discussing and focusing in how to, let's say, change or erode the IPR system worldwide. It seems like little by little we are recognizing that that is not the that is not the focus of
That's
the
not a
problem. That is
problem.
not the right question, and the right challenge is mostly in capacity building and knowledge transfer for regions like ours. So I think that that you have touched very important points at this stage, Dr. Ben. And how, regarding all these insights that you have shared with us, today. How would you think that the general scenario of IPR is going to change in the future worldwide? What do you think it could be the lessons learned throughout all this process that we've been living?
Yes. Oh, that pandemics and the whole debate about the waiver proposal make me think, okay, is the IP system only incentive that we have at the moment? I don't think so, right? I think the government might have like different resources and different incentive to encourage people to do more research, to be more inventive, to be more innovative. Is it fair that we just direct on the discussion and debate to the IB system only? And I don't know what has the IB system done to be put into the limelight of on the discussion. And as we say, the we can see the contribution from the industry. I don't say the patent system is flawless and has no it's not perfect, but at the same time I think it's a little bit unfair to time the discussion of the slow vaccine inequitable access to vaccine to the IP system. I think there are more things than that. There is vaccine hesitancy, having administration, a regulatory body, and those are the things that we need a more holistic approach. And I don't think by singling out the IP system, we can get people, we can get the vaccine to people arms quicker. I don't think so, and I think that's pandemic give us I give you the example that I mentioned at the beginning. Moderna pledged not to enforce the patent protection. So if any companies think that they can manufacture the vaccine, Moderna vaccine, they can go ahead. But so far, I'm sure that you also like we haven't heard any request, any agreement on that yet. So it might. So shall we think that the vaccine manufacturing is that complicated, and that no companies feel confident to go forward to manufacture the vaccine? And even the governments, we have compulsory licensing, we have a government use licensing, and governments can do that. And this is the perfect example of national emergency of public non-commercial use for the government to issue compulsory licensing. But even countries like Canada, like France, like Germany, they haven't issued the compulsory licensing for vaccines, because I think they know that that compulsory licensing wouldn't help to have more vaccines.
Definitely, and I think that you have reached well, one very important point, Dr. Brennan, is let's say how we as civil societies, in some way of or other, put pressures to governments, to legislators and authorities in situations like this one, like a pandemic, in which, let's say, we feel all in threat and in difficult times, and this gives this, I would say, very natural reaction of saying, okay, no intellectual property, we are going to move on compulsory licenses, no patents. We are going to produce here. We are going to be a bigger pharma lab right now in just a couple of in some very short months, and we are going to be self-sufficient here from our side, because we are going to show that we are able. Is it that a promise that we can say to people from lower income countries and developing countries? Because I guess that you realize in your research that even rich and highly developed countries are not sufficient in terms
Yeah.
about research and manufacturing of vaccines. Let's talk just Germany is, well, you for sure
Yeah.
can share.
Yeah.
So what would be your recommendation for people and governments not to fall in this sort of populism reaction regarding how we should respond to pandemic.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to address I think you made a very interesting comment about, okay, we will have the no patent or with compulsory licensing, we will have a bigger Fatma life and we will be self-sufficient in a short amount of time. And I agree with you that it's wishful thinking and an illusion. We cannot promise with our people that, okay, once you give away the patent, we will give you the vaccine. I think it's not true. It is simply not true. And I think for the government, I said at the beginning, and I have nothing else to offer, but just to encourage the government. First of all, for countries like U.S., like India, and the region like the EU, so to lift the production, to lift the sorry the restriction, so vaccine manufacturers can have the access to the raw materials. So I think that is very important. And like countries like US, they also stockpile 100 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, even they don't have to use it yet, and only until the crisis in India, so the US decided to share the vaccines with other countries. I think they could have done it earlier. Similarly to the UK, I think those countries and the EU, they will need to share the vaccines, the one that they are not using at the moment, to developing countries or to least developed countries. I think that is also the moral obligation of the countries like the US, the UK, or the region like the EU. And I think at the same time, I think the government should consider very carefully about the waiver proposal, because that is might bring more do more harm than benefit to the people, because um, the vaccine, if the mass production of the vaccine cannot be controlled by to a certain extent by the patent owners, it might both some dangers to the vaccine. That's because we don't know whether the vaccine will be properly checked or not. And then if you need to attract the technology transfer agreements, if you want to have more licenses, I don't think by supporting the waiving proposal will send a good signal to that. So there is something that we might take into account. So in my view, both for the short term and the long term solutions, I don't think the waiver proposal will bring any benefits to countries which supporting them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that you have reached a point in it which is necessary to address something that you have already evidenced in your research, which is how important it is for healthcare innovation and property rights related all the other things happening, medical equipment, medical technology,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
And how let's say how these decisions now related to COVID reaction could impact research and innovation in all the other fields of healthcare. Would you address a little bit about that? Because I think it's a very strong message for healthcare professions and people involved like ours.
Yeah, I think like in the waiver proposal, they did mention that the waiver proposal will apply to like kind of on any research relating to the production manufacturing of the COVID-19. So basically, anything relating to the COVID-19 research will fall into the scope of the waiver proposal. And I think it's very dangerous because we see that the virus is mutating like every day. So we need to guarantee people that the incentive they will have, so they at least so the intellectual property will be there to protect them. Because if we apply that waiver proposal to on research, I think it's a very dangerous move.
Great. Okay, Dr. Banan. So I think that you have shared with us impressive insights and really congratulate for the research you've been doing throughout your life, and we really expect to see much more of your thoughts in the short term. And of course, thank you very much from our side, from Enos. We expect to have you soon back again in this discussion, why not doing some research also with us. And thank you very much for all your insights.
Yeah, thank you
And
very much.
hope to see you here in
Yeah,
Colombia at
yeah.
some time when it's
Yes,
proper to
me too.
travel.
I would love to be in Colombia one day. And thank you very much for having me today. And thanks. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. See you.
Muchas gracias al doctor Carlos Felipe Escobar y a la doctora Banan por tan interesante conversación, sobre todo por las reflexiones a las que hemos estado llegando a lo largo pues, del día de hoy. Y nuevamente invitamos a todas las personas que nos están siguiendo en la transmisión en este momento que pueden suscribirse a este canal para no perderse ninguno de los próximos diálogos ni ninguno de los próximos eventos que vamos a estar realizando desde este tanque de pensamiento. Adicionalmente, los invitamos a que nos sigan en las redes sociales. Aparecemos en Facebook, aparecemos en Twitter como INOS, como el Instituto de Prospectiva e Innovación en Salud. Queremos agradecer de manera especial a la Embajada de Reino Unido por su apoyo en la realización de este espacio y los próximos que tendremos en las próximas semanas. A ustedes, muchas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy. Muy buen día para todos.